Hello everyone and welcome back to Our Life. I'm actually playing this way in advance because I wanna continue Derek's story and I haven't played in like 2 weeks because the episode was so long. I had to break it up into like 3 episodes. So I'm gonna hop back into this, so enjoy. We're gonna do lemonade. It was afternoon on a sleepy summer day. Nothing urgent needed to be done. No real plans had been made. You and your company were simply hanging out around the local beach, free as the breeze. The companions you had for your trip across the shore were Derek and your neighbor Cove. Derek was friends with both of the 13-year-olds in the neighborhood, so the three of you would often get together as a group when he was in town. 3 pairs of footprints trailed along the soft white sand behind you. Derek had only been dropped off minutes ago. He brought with him those clothes you had left at his house after your night swim. You'd taken a minute to put them away. But instead of everyone going inside your house or heading to Coves, you'd simply started to walk. But it was definitely hot out. Southern California tended to get that way. But it wasn't so bad that you had to hide away from the beating rays of the sun. Cove's hands were in his pockets. He spoke out while facing away from you. Instead, he lazily watched the unchanging horizon. What do you guys want to do? You and Derek took on matching squints. Normally, there'd be endless answers to that question, but the lack a dizzle mood made it feel like trying to solve math problems in a dream. You had nothing. Your thoughts were moving as slowly as a tide that inched towards the shore bit by bit. Finally, the resident problem solver offered a possibility with a yawn and tall stretch of his arm over his head.
Well,
Wanna walk to the grocery store? What? Cove twisted his face to the opposite side and stared at Derek. A stuttering laugh expressed his disbelief. Why would we go grocery shopping? With a shrug, Derek scratched his cheek and explained. Well, it's probably different here, but where I live, the closest place to get stuff isn't a convenience store or mall or anything, it's the grocery store. So sometimes me and my brothers will take a trip down there and see what we can find. That sounds neat. When you find groceries, uh, I'll try it if you want to. You stared at him with the same quizzical look as Cove, along with the explanation. You've you've got some interesting hobbies, Derek, you teased. Let's be like, when did you find groceries? Derek just laughed, and the puzzled reactions from his two friends didn't deter him at all.
this is gonna be
It's
great.
really not like normal errands. You can get anything you want. There are a lot of things at the store you never even think about when you're there with your parents, and a list of stuff for the house. Those formerly heavy, drooping lids drifted high, showing his bright blue eyes. He glanced between you and Derek for final confirmation that you were seriously doing this today. Derek had complete confidence in his stance. He got he's got a point there, Cove. The corner of your neighbor's mouth perked up as well. Okay, let's go grocery shopping. Cool. It was another successful bit of improvising on Derek's part. He put his hands on his hips eagerly.
Let's go.
I'm pretty sure I know where your store is, but the two of you should probably lead the way. Leave it to us. Cove puffed his chest out with pride. He was a true local to the town after being there for so many years. And your walk continued, now with an actual destination in mind. You retraced the remnants of your steps in the sand, heading back to the neighborhood, then up the hill out of the residential area. When you turned onto the main street, the grocery store was already visible in the distance. It also wasn't going anywhere, so you enjoyed the stroll together. You would arrive when you arrived. Derek continued to sell the concept of his plan by recounting stories of him and his brother's past adventures in the grocery
But
land. So we got super lucky because the discount rack had a whole cherry pie for way off. Me, George, and Nico pulled our pocket change to get it, and then we had an entire pie just like that. So we sat outside on a bench near the store and ate it from the pan. It was cut into 6 slices. I only let the kids have one piece each It was already a lot of sugar. I didn't want to make them food sick. I tried to come up with how we were going to explain half a pie to Mom, but Nico had his own idea. He took a slice he wasn't allowed to eat, instead threw it at George. Cove's mouth gaped open and at the audacity. Derek laughed out loud, the memory and response it got in the present. He'd been watching way too many cartoons with food fights and pies to the face, I guess. He believed that if there was no one thing Nicholas loved, it was Derek, and if there was another, it was cars, and if there was a third thing, it was copying things he'd seen others do. Obviously, George didn't let that slide. He took the fifth piece of pie and squished it right into Nicholas's head. His hair was covered in dark cherry goo. It was a mess, but if you can't beat him, join him. I dumped the last of the pie on myself. Why? I stopped them from fighting over it, and they would have ended up feeling bad if they got messy, and I didn't. Nicholas doesn't think very far ahead. Oh, what did you do next?
Honestly,
We found a water fountain around the back of the grocery store and tried to scrape off as much pie as possible. Then we went home. Mom still figured out what happened, and we all had to take a real bath. That was a good time. A fond smile settled on Derek's face. He glanced up at the sky while getting lost in an entirely private moment of reminiscing. Cove was still reflecting on the story with amusement. That's adorable. I hope we find a whole pie. How grocery stores are more exciting than I thought. You good old Derek storytelling. You shake your head. How ridiculous that was. That's adorable. Like, just think of those little boys smashing each other with pie. Thanks. Cove ruffled a hand through his hair, possibly considering how it might have felt to have an entire pie crush into his locks. He smirked. A pie throwing fight is way more memorable than I would have guessed. The most unexpected thing that happened to me when I was shopping was the time that I got a free balloon and accidentally popped it pretty much immediately.
dude.
Oh shoot. It was Derek's turn to chuckle in nervous disbelief. His grin shook just imagining it.
It's okay.
It's okay. Rest in peace, Pop. Rest in pieces, Pop. That was so terrible. That was so sad, but also really funny. I'm sorry that's how our first shopping trip ended, Cove. He smiled lightly over the memory. Rest in peace. You won't be forgotten. Cove's the conversation stayed on the topic of store-related outings. Naturally, it was that time you all went to the mall with Lee, technically Kara too, was discussed. Where Cove's mom went during the trip was still highly speculated, but there were theories. The chat didn't last much longer, though. Soon you crossed the street and arrived at Sunset Bird's local mom and pop grocery store. You and your two co-shoppers headed right through the automatic doors. A shiver went down your spine when you stepped out of the afternoon heat into the powerful air-conditioned store. Shiny, orderly aisles stretched out in front of you, each one tightly packed with a plethora of brightly packaged merchandise. To some people, the rows and rows of items might have been a slog to go through, but seen through Derek's eyes, it was a scavenger hunt with endless opportunities. Though it was Cove who spoke first. Do we need a cart?
Nope.
Probably not. Derek casually waved that off, eyes still fixed ahead on the altar of consumerism ahead. We're here for quality, not quantity. Besides, do we even have enough money to buy a ton of things? Oh, wait. Cove suddenly burrowed his hand in his pocket again. He tucked them in deep and didn't find what he'd gone in search of. I don't have my wallet. It's at home. Me neither. I thought we'd just be in the neighborhood all day. Yeah,
I figured.
it's cool. I figured. Derek's lack of reaction couldn't smooth over Cove's obvious response to the situation. He waved his eyebrows and pulled them together. We could have stopped by to get it before we left. Nah, this was my idea, so my treat. I've got like $8 and some change. That's enough for all of us to spend around a few dollars or put it together for one thing. That's gonna be plenty. Thanks, Derek. Not even $10 between us. Wow, it's like we're kids again. Promise I'll pay you back. Yeah, that'd be more than enough for this. Thanks, Derek. Just thanks. No problem. Having limited funds is the best part. You gotta get creative. Cove's hands finally deserted into his pockets, and one came up to rub his forearm instead. Okay, thanks. Let's get something good. Derek took a few steps forward and he cheered. All right, here we go. You went down the nearest aisle, swiveling your head to check both sides on the path as you swung currently empty of good arms through the air. The first stop in the market expedition was the discount rack in the back. You didn't have the same luck as Derek and his little brothers. It was the only place in the store that was barren. One shelf had several dented cartons of chicken stock. Stuffed in the bottom of the rack was a bag of plain rolls. The sight was pretty pathetic. Too bad. He shrugged like it was nothing, but his words told a different story. It would have been easy if there was a pie here, or a cake, or one of those pans with a bunch of cinnamon rolls. Wistfully, Cove continued to mumble a list of miscellaneous pastries that would have potentially been able to get if fates had aligned. Good, this keeps getting interesting. You can still get the stock. Is such a good deal. Sorry, Cove. I was hoping for cake this time, too. Shake your head. Good, let's keep it interesting. Definitely. There's still plenty of possibilities. And if push comes to shove, we could afford a small treat like getting 3 boxes with 1 slice of cake each. We wouldn't eat more than that anyway. The deadpan expression Cove directed straight at Derek made him lift a curious brow. What, you want more? Cove could have eaten half the pie himself. Yeah, speak for yourself, Derek. 1 slice wouldn't cut it. You don't need that much dessert, Cove. You shrugged amused. Cove could eat a whole half by himself. Wow, alright, it's good we didn't find one then. Hey! You pushed past the already pilfered treasure chest and continued to chat as you passed cereals, pasta, sauces, aisles full of chips, baking soda, packs and more. The dry goods, canned foods, now behind you, arrived at the produce section, and the arrangement for goods was much more open than the narrow rows and shelves. The 3 of you could spread out more in between pallets and baskets of fruit, fresh fruits and vegetables. Derek grabbed an avocado to check the ripeness. Cove stared at the watermelons, appreciating the fruit, but his blank face made it obvious he had no idea how to tell if they were good quality or not. Then a recognizable cracking sound sputtered to life. Both the boys who lifted their heads. Without conversing, the 2 rushed over to the back wall where leafy greens were piled up. A light spray of mist burst in the sprinklers, raining down gently on the produce. Cove and Derek stuck their hands into the damp air while snickering. Derek rubbed his hands together to pretend he was washing them. Cove lifted his hand up to be as close to the source of water as possible. You also had your hands in the veggie mist? You thought 2 were silly? That was weird. Oh, we stuck my whole fucking face into it when we went shopping. You made your own dash across the floor to enjoy the tiny dusting of water droplets on your cheeks. The impromptu public shower ended shortly, and it was back to the center of the space for you. Knowing grins were shared around as you regrouped, there was a comfort in realizing someone else had the same silly habits as you. With the distraction over and the main goal unresolved, Cove helplessly glanced around the store. He was totally stumped. There's a lot of things I like, but I don't have to get any of it now. How do we pick? There was a whine in his tone. He crossed his arms out of frustration. Derek kept it light, same as he would when dealing with his much younger siblings. Dude, you need more imagination. Turn lemons into lemonade.
Got a plan.
Actually, wait, yeah, that's what we should do. We can get some lemons and make our own lemonade. The concept struck Cove just as much as Derek. Oh, that would be cool. I think so too. Now that's an idea. If that's what you want, you gave a nod. Now that's an idea. Thanks. Derek marched up with a purpose to a box that was heavy with mesh bags of the desired yellow citrus. He tapped his finger to his chin, then bounced from foot to the other. Derek was suddenly a lemon connoisseur who scrutinized the offerings with utmost focus. He selected 2 bags, 1 in each hand. The bottom of each pack was set against his upturned palms. Derek jiggled the lemons and tried to get a sense of their weight. Finally, the bag on the right was deemed superior, and Derek carefully laid the unwanted bundle back on the stack. He then lifted the winner high, showing it off to Cove and you. I've got my thing. It's only $3. Your turns. This time Cove didn't look aimlessly at what was in front of him. He strutted his eyes and put mind power to conjuring up an answer. He soon stole a quick glance at Derek's lemons through squinted eyes, and then he turned. Come on.
Let's go.
Let's do it. You made another trip across the length of the store, this time at a much brisker pace. Cove had a target in sight, even if you couldn't see it yet. He blew past all the food aisles and pet shelves and cleaning supplies. He only stopped when you made it one random aisle in the store with cheap plastic kid toys. This is it. His words were eager and certain. This was childish excitement to Cove that was fitted for the location. He reached a hand into the wall with yo-yos and bubble blowers. His fingers landed on a baggie full of water balloons. Drinking lemonade is going to make me want to have fun outside, too. We can use this for that.
Yeah.
Perfect plan, Cove. Good work, and you could do it. It's great you found something. I'm amazed you didn't give food. All right, you 2 grand. Knew we could do it. Knew he could do it. Thanks. For all his previous indecisions, the sweetness of victory was all the more worth it for Cove. His selection was even cheaper than Derek's, $2 and a bit of change. All, so let's see here, 3, 2, and change. So I got $4. His selection was even cheaper. Derek's $2, a bit of your change, and a bit of change. All that was left of Derek's money was $3 and your choice of prize. Derek patiently cradled the bag of lemons while Cove watched, you expectantly excited to see what the final piece of the puzzle would be. You reflected the theme of what was forming your own preferences and shareability of different goods. In the end, you opened your mouth and said, chips, candy, umbrellas, discount rolls. I like the bubble blowers, yo-yo, gum, don't want anything. Chips, lemonade, water balloons. It's a day. Yeah, we need that. Well, yes, we need that. You got to lead the way out of the toy aisle and back to the thick of the grocery store traffic. You wound around the aisles until you found the right spot. You took another minute to pick out the best chips, and then you were done. With items in hand, you, Derek, and Cove went through the checkout line. Derek dug out his pocket change and paid for the auto arrangement of items. None of you bothered to get a bag. Derek's was already in one, and you and Cove could easily carry your things on your own. After a successful grocery trip, you returned to the great outdoors to walk back to the neighborhood. This kind of outing reminded you it wasn't about what you were doing. What counted was who you were doing it with. Outside, you gathered in front of the crosswalk and waited for a chance to get back on the main sidewalk. While standing around, it was unanimously decided that you'd bring your goods to Cove's house and make the lemonade there. Your home had the risk of Elizabeth deciding she wanted a pre-dinner snack. She wouldn't appreciate having a lemonade-making operation in the way. There was no worry of that in the Holden condo. Cove's mom and dad were out, and even if they weren't, they were his parents, so not his bossy big sibling. They wouldn't even dream of throwing the 3 of you out of the kitchen to use it instead. Derek was thinking along similar lines based on what he said next. Honestly, man, I can't wrap my head around what it's like to not have any siblings hanging around the house at all. I don't mean that you're weird for that, just it's gotta be so different.
Really?
Is it? I have my dad here. My mom is staying right now, too.
I guess.
Yeah, but that's not the same. Parents take care of the kids, and the kids have a bunch of stuff they need. Every day has to be about me and my brothers. If we go out to eat, will everyone like the stuff there, or will George be too picky? Are we old enough to do whatever the thing is, or is Nico too little? My birthday is the only time I can do everything that I want for the whole time and still choose to keep my bros in mind, even though my parents don't make me.
It's okay.
I don't mind, but it's crazy imagining a world where I don't have to do that. Huh, I hadn't thought about that. Cove's eyes darted back and forth, and he bit the inside of his cheek. I guess having siblings or not changes how someone thinks. I figured people would be who they are no matter what, but maybe I would have needed to be a little less different if I had to share my parents in my life all the time. I'm glad both of you are who you are. I can relate to that, Derek. I wonder who I'd be without Elizabeth. I don't even want to imagine a world without Elizabeth. You quietly considered the topic. I wonder who would be without Elizabeth. I think you'd still be someone great. But the road was clear, so Derek got the conversation and his legs moving again. He started preparing by listing off what you need to gather when you made it back. Sugar, ideally some ice and really cold water, a pitcher or something like that. Do you guys have one of those lemon squeezers? We can do it by hand if we gotta. With every object Derek recited, Cove nodded along plainly. but he was watching something off in the distance. His faraway thoughts made Derek's words reach him less and less until Derek noticed lack of reaction. He called to Cove more loudly to catch his attention. Are you okay, dude? Oh. Cove blinked as his brain snapped back into place in the center of his head. It's nothing. What were we talking about? Derek spun his lemon bag into a mini tornado by twisting it around tight from the bottom and then releasing it. He snickered. No worries, I was just making plans for making the lemonade. Okay. The rest of the trip passed by comfortably. Derek carried the conversation, and Cove really paid attention from then on. Once you arrived at your neighborhood and reached Cove's front door, the resident of the building opened it up without needing a key. It was already unlocked. Derek gasped upon seeing such a lack of security. Cove, however, was so relaxed and content that he yawned while going inside. That unknowingly cut off Derek's chance to question Cove about his choice not to lock the door. He simply followed his friend inside, and you did as well. Cove leisurely crossed his living room, dropped his bag of water balloons on the coffee table for later. You left your chips alongside it.
I'm on it.
All right. Derek went straight into the kitchen. He had his lemon bag over his shoulder like a gym pack and flipped over to sit beside the sink. He slipped his thumbs through the holes of the mesh and tore it. Where's your colander? Cove paused, looking incredulously at the wall. Then he turned and projected his confusion across the counter towards the source of it.
What?
My what? Undeterred, Derek quickly offered a rephrase. A strainer. In the lower cabinet, the one on the left. Derek pressed his hand into the marble and leaned forward with a grin. Thanks, Cove. I've never heard a strainer be called a colander before. I can't believe you didn't know what a colander was. You learn something new every day, huh, Cove? Oh yeah, I totally knew what Derek was talking about. You watched the boys' amusement. You learn something new every day. Yeah. Then the spiky-haired chef ducked down and disappeared from your sight. If you could call someone who made lemonade a chef, that is. When he popped back into view, framed by the back wall and support beams at the front of the kitchen, Derek was holding a silver strainer. He plopped it into the sink and sharply clinked it against the metal basin. Derek took a big bag he set nearby and dumped every single lemon into the waiting container. He turned the faucet so he could clean the cherry fruits. The sound of running water added an extra layer of relaxation to the atmosphere. Cove stopped dawdling and joined the already hard at work Derek in the kitchen. He grabbed a cutting board, a large knife from the upper drawer. It was his house, and he wordlessly claimed responsibility for the riskiest part of making the lemonade. Cove also directed you towards the sugar and a few other things. As it turned out, Mr. Holden didn't have an actual lemon squeezer, so you were going to be doing that by hand. He did have a perfectly crystal clear glass pitcher that be perfect for the lemonade. The body of it was completely round, ball-shaped. It had a narrowed ledge that pulled in at the top, with one side pinched into a spout. As far as you could tell, it'd never been used.
Hey.
Have you made lemonade before, Ari, Cove? Look at these boys. Look at them. Both adorable. Derek casually questioned both of you while he hefted the so-called colander up and down, shaking off some of the water clinging to the freshly washed lemons. I make it all the time. I have, but only in summer. I've done it a few times. Maybe I don't remember. I love making lemonade, but I've only done it a few times. I've made really simple lemonade before, just for me. I'd squeeze one lemon into a glass of water and dump in a spoonful of sugar. It wasn't that great, but it was easy. Cool. Derek hummed a while, placing lemons on a clean kitchen towel. He took a fruit from the colander with his left hand and passed it over to his right and placed it down while grabbing a new one.
It's all
I've made it before too. Fresh lemonade is so good. I'm excited for this. So am I. Your tools were all prepared, and now so the team shifted into the actual creation of the traditional summer drink. Cove would cut the lemons into chunks. Derek gave Cove a tip to roll the lemons against the board before slicing them to get the juices going. You and Derek worked hard to get together to squish the fruits. You squeezed the lemon parts over the pitcher itself with smaller strainer balanced over the mouth of it to catch the seeds. Piece by piece, you crushed the thick peel into itself to pop little sacks of juice in the fruit. The tip of your fingers began to wrinkle after a while, but slowly a murky liquid pooled at the bottom of the glass container. When enough fruits were chopped, Cove joined the juicing efforts. The three of you huddled around the counter together. You leaned over one pitcher and strained to get everything out you could out of the little yellow menace while not accidentally squirting acid into anyone's eyes. The precariousness of the situation aside, Cove continued the conversation with a question of his own. Derek, you made lemonade, but did you ever do the whole lemonade stand thing where you try and sell it to random people who pass by? Oh yeah, it was a mess. I think we only sold like 2 cups. Nicholas kept drinking our supply, and George, efforts to stop him, spilled even more of it.
Oh man.
Plus, the 2 kids fighting over the lemonade jar probably scared people away from the stall. But it's not like I was expecting that to be some kind of entrepreneurial success. It was for Nico and George to have fun, and they did, mostly. As usual, tales of Derek's endeavors as a big brother got Cove to chuckle. You were also smiling, even though your fingers had started to cramp after so much lemon compacting. Me and Elizabeth did that too. Never got to do that. I didn't ever try. I could never talk to strangers like that. I don't like the it's not fair part, but we're also pretty confident. So I guess I'm just gonna go with that. Lizzie took it very seriously. She shouted at every person who passed by, though there weren't many of those. You've seen our neighborhood. Almost no one comes here, and our moms wouldn't let us go all the way to the main street to set it up.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah, that's a problem. It was all bad. We didn't have high success rates with the poor people who crossed our paths. Lizzie would chase them down if they tried to pretend they didn't see her. But too bad for them. The lemonade we made was horrible. They got really nice drink out of the annoyance, though. I have no idea if anyone really liked the drink, but they at least said it was good. I'll go with that one. Derek was the one laughing then. He squeezed another chunk with a wink.
Cool.
That's impressive. It's hard to market out there.
Man.
But man, all this business talk makes me think about how I only met either of you because my dad partnered with Cove's dad's business. If that hadn't happened, you'd probably would have never learned I existed. You still don't know each other, obviously. You'd still know each other, obviously. Derek squeezed his 12th lemon chunk with a fittingly sour expression on his face. He'd accidentally made himself feel like a third wheel. In a cluster of human juicers, Derek was in the middle, yet he began to fade despite being right next to you, and you and Cove looked at one another from over Derek's lowered head. Cove pushed himself to smile through his concern while also giving Derek's arm a little nudge with his elbow. I worry about that kind of thing sometimes, too. If my dad hadn't picked this street to move to, I wouldn't have met Ari.
It's okay.
But my dad still would have had his business, so I still would have met you. Sheepishly, Derek pressed his shoulder up and around his face. He managed a small smile. Yeah, it's rough for all of us. Where your parents live and what your parents do has to matter so much to everything. Derek bit his lip, unwilling to let himself continue to speak negatively. But, like a turtle coming out of his shell, Derek lifted himself off the counter and joined you and Cove at his regular eye level. We did meet each other, and we're friends. That's what counts. Exactly. What ifs don't make a difference because we're all here. We could have met another way somehow. That's 3 of us who worry over those things. I'm glad we got to meet. Soon we'll be old enough to decide everything in our lives. We're going to decide everything in our lives. That's going to be crazy. It'll be a relief. Cove quietly watched over his friends, soothed by his uplifted mood. Then his lips parted as a pleasant thought came to mind. Hey, is this where I was standing when I first met? Hey, this is where I was standing when I first met you.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Derek bounced up on his toes and tossed the lemon piece he'd been working on over into the trash can. Landed inside perfectly. But I was on the other side of the counter back then. Now I'm here in the kitchen with you. That caught your ear and you lifted your eyebrow. You'd never heard the details of what happened when Derek met and Cove met for the first time. You knew their parents started working together, and one day Derek was just there in the neighborhood hanging out with Cove, but that was it. Derek could recognize an intrigued audience when he saw one and did what he knew how to do, tell the rest of the story. Mr. Holt invited me and my dad over for a meal at his house after their partnership was official. He talked about Cove before when him and my dad were getting to know each other. You can't get away from hearing about Mr. Holden's top-notch son if you spend any time with him. Off to the side, Cove mumbled with embarrassment over what he clearly thought was unnecessary addition. Derek laughed the minor interruption off and went on. So my dad suggested that I come too, since we're all the same age. Mr. Holden was apparently really into the idea. I had no idea what to expect from something like that, but I wanted to go too. A sort of business dinner with my dad. It felt pretty cool to be invited, and then I went. Whatever I was imagining before I got there, Mr. Holden definitely wasn't it. I had thought my dad was casual for a professional business person, but Cove's dad takes the cake. And warmth came to Cove's expression, not the red-hot heat of fluster from before, but a gentleness that was based in his honest love for his parent. A lot of people don't expect Dad to be how he is. What did you think about me when you first met me, you know? Derek mindlessly scratched his damp hand against the back of his head. A stray lemon seed clung to one of the spikes of his hair. You didn't want to cut the two off, so a little bit went unmentioned.
No way.
Honestly, when I spotted you in the back of the kitchen, I thought Mr. Holden had another older kid who was hiding, because there was no way that guy was 13. You were so tall and fit, you just stared at people. You seemed like a tough upper grade teen who'd never talk to somebody like me. You snickered under your breath. If you didn't know any better, you'd think he was describing Elizabeth. Having that description be assigned to Cove, Holden felt of all people was hilarious. Cove was equally startled by Derek's choice of words, his eyes opened wide in amazement. You thought I was tough? Yeah, I mean, I did, but thought is definitely the right word for that. That instant put Cove into a pouty mood. He pressed both his palms against the marble countertop, not bothering to squeeze another lemon. Cove didn't want to play anymore. Derek leaned in his shoulder against Cove's side affectionately. He reached past him to the lemon slice Cove wasn't using and started to juice it himself. Sorry, there's nothing wrong with being a softie. I like that about you. Bringing Derek's statement to life, Cove visibly relaxed his stance. The tone of his voice was equally delicate. I guess it's not bad. It's great, Cove. Cove took a new piece of fruit and rejoined the lemonade-making efforts. Derek pinched an eye shut from the tension, crushing a chunk in his fist, and hesitantly continued the topic. So, what about me? When you first met me, what kind of impression did you get? With much less force, Cove used both hands to work on his single lemon. He answered the question while staring off into space. That was likely the same expression Derek had seen the moment they'd met. The face he'd read as an intimidating rather than easily distracted. I thought he probably liked sports. All three of you shook from laughter, bumping against each other with your closeness, like a bunch of grapes on a vine rustling in the wind.
I get it.
Okay, Ari, your turn. What did you think about me when we first met? Oh. Your mind drifted back a few months ago before summer vacation had begun. You stepped out of your house late in the evening and Cove was sitting on the curb with someone else, someone you'd never seen in your life, not even in passing at school. A green-eyed boy with football jersey who was joking about lightheartedly with your longtime neighbor. You couldn't even guess where he had appeared from. It was like Cove had conjured up a friend through magic. You had stood there staring only a second, but the newcomer noticed your presence quickly. He jumped right to his feet, jogged across the street, and stuck out his hand for you to shake. With the wide grin that you were so familiar with now, he introduced himself to you for the first time as Derek. Thought you were nice, thought you were younger than Cove, thought you were the politest teenager I ever met. Too thought this guy liked sports. I thought you were cute. I didn't know what to think. We're gonna go with cute. Really? Thanks. I expect to hear what you thought of me now. Derek's gaze shifted from the picture in front of him to settle on you instead. There was a focus in his eyes that made you hold your breath from anticipation. I thought you were cute too. Look at that. I think we made Cove a little embarrassed. Like, I don't want to be here for this. Wow, it was kind of flattering to know you'd made such a good first impression on Derek. Thank you for telling me. Well, I'm glad you didn't think I sucked. Okay. We're a couple of cuties. You smirked. You began to blush. We're a couple of cuties. Definitely. By the way, you have a lemon seed in your hair. And then you kept. We gotta tell this man. Oh, Derek raked his hand through his light brown strands blindly. Unfortunately, he focused on the top and sides. He never even hit the right spot. One of your hands covered the laughter coming out of your mouth, and you used the other to point out the target on the back of his head. Finally, he was able to brush the seed onto the floor. He bent down to pick it up, dropped the side on the counter. Thanks, Harry. You're welcome. We could add a little of this lemon zest too. I'll do that. Derek fumbled to move the topic to something else. His darkening cheeks were probably the reason why. Do you have a grater or a peeler? Yeah. Cove gestured to the same drawer and the knife had come out of. Derek dug through it until he successfully retrieved. Obviously, a lot of time has passed since I originally recorded this, but I still hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, remember to hit like and subscribe to come back and see more. Because I'm loving this DLC, even though I haven't played in so long. Just with the holidays and everything, I haven't had time. Anyway, I hope you had a good day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.